This is the Fiat Tipo Cross, and according to the Stellantis press release, this is, and I quote here, the missing link of a crossover. Is there something more to a Tipo Cross than the terrible translation from Italian? Watch me review this handsome hatchback with some plastic cladding.
The current generation Fiat Tipo debuted back in 2015 and in late 2020 it underwent a facelift. In the front we get new larger Fiat logo. Depending on the trim, the new-ish Tipo gets either LED day running lights or full LED headlights like this car. All versions get LED tail lamps. The Stellantian marketoids say the LED headlights are not just for safety, but they also help lower CO2 emissions, and I am almost certain CO2 emissions from your Tipo are what keeps you awake at night. This compact car is available as a sedan in some markets, a hatchback and an estate. And now, thanks to the product gurus, also as a hatchback with a bit more ground clearance, which they called the Cross, as in crossover.
Here, I'd like to stress that I actually like the way the Tipo Cross looks. I think the mild take a walk on the wild side job makes it much more interesting than the ordinary hatchback. There is also recalibrated suspension and bigger rims and tires that come from the 500X, giving the Tipo Cross a more purposeful stance. The Tipo Cross is about 6 centimeters taller than the regular hatchback and about 4 centimeters taller than the estate. Depending on the source, the ground clearance is 1 or 2 centimeters higher, and it is now 16 centimeters. An interesting fact, at almost 439 centimeters in length, the Tipo hatchback and Cross are longer than the Dacia Duster. The Dacia SUV is slightly wider and has slightly longer wheelbase. It is also noticeably taller and has a significantly bigger 21 centimeter ground clearance. And let's not forget about the optional all-wheel drive, which the Tipo Cross doesn't have.
The Tipo boot is 440 liters, that's without the optional full-size spare which this car has, so this one has about 400 liters boot capacity, which is on par with the Peugeot 308 hatchback and more than the Volkswagen Golf. There are shopping bag hooks as well as an optional 12-volt socket. You won't reach the seat folding levers with this parcel shelf on, so you have to go around to the back. Since the floor is not ideally at the folded backrest level, Fiat raised the far end slightly, making it easier to slide heavier items further in.
A small thing that grinds my gears. In the Ioniq 5 review, I complained the camera is centrally mounted while the boot release handle is offset to the side. Fiat went a step further and moved the camera to the left and the boot release handle to the right, so nobody gets to eat their cake and keep it.
There is sufficient legroom and headroom in the back. I'm 175 centimeters tall and the driver's seat is set to my driving position. I have space to spare. The seats are comfy and you sit relatively high. I also have a lot of room for my feet under the seat, which I actually had to pump up to see anything above the steering wheel. But the door pockets are useless if you want to stick a larger bottle in them. And there is only one USB port, the armrest is for the higher trim cars only, and there are no cup holders in it. The backrest splits 40-60, so 2 passengers and some longer items are a no-no.
What's changed in the front after the facelift? Well, on higher trims now you get your virtual instrument cluster, but don't worry, if you're into analog dials, they are on lower trims as well. Now this one has a 7-inch display and analogish gauges on the sides.
On this screen you can display trip computer information as well as data from driver aids, car status, multimedia, etc. But if you want the big analog-like speedo, you can't have the trip computer on the same screen. In the middle is the optional 10.25-inch Uconnect infotainment display. The infotainment system is quite logical and easy to use. Also, it features wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so who cares about the rest, right? This is a touchscreen, but below it are physical buttons for some basic car functions, including the city power steering button. Who needs even lighter electric power steering these days? Lower are the physical AC controls. And on the very bottom is the phone cubby with a USB port, a 12-volt socket and an optional wireless charger. However, if your phone doesn't charge wirelessly and you need to plug it in, it will stick out and probably obstruct the gear shifter. And big news! Fiat kept a physical volume jog dial and it's located down by the handbrake and the cup holders. Speaking of cup holders, they are on the small side. Also, storage under the armrest and the glove box are nothing to write home about. And the front door pockets are pretty useless as well.
As part of the facelift, the Tipo now gets keyless ignition. Now, don't be surprised when you leave the car with the wheels slightly turned. The wheel locks, then you press the button to start the car and this happens.
There is also something new under the bonnet. In some markets you may still get a Tipo Classic trim with the old 1.4-liter 95 horsepower petrol Fire engine. Fire is not a good name for an engine, but all other trims are available with the new 1-liter 3-cylinder 100 horsepower turbo petrol engine or with one of the two old diesels 1.3 95 horsepower or 1.6 130 horsepower. The most powerful diesel comes with a 6-speed manual and the other engines get a 5-speed manual transmission.
This is the 100 horsepower 3-banger. I'll start with the negatives. On a cold start it likes to vibrate and jerk for a couple of 100 meters. Afterwards it's mainly okay, and the car is geared towards low emissions, so during city driving it's hard to find the right gear to make use of the 190 Newton meters of torque. It's a shame.
But at least it uses as much petrol as Fiat promises, and that's around 7 liters per 100 kilometers in the city, less than 6 combined, and around 5 extra urban. It's not common for small engines to meet test results in real life. The 0 to 100 kilometers per hour time is 12.2 seconds officially. I checked and I got 12.6 seconds. That's within a margin of error. After all, we're not talking about a performance car. By the way, on the road, the Tipo feels at least 3 seconds quicker than it really is.
Suspension. It is often the case that cars are good on single bumps, but when the roads get rough, they fall apart, and the Tipo Cross is the other way around. On a smooth road, this car is lifeless, and you notice those single bumps, but find yourself on a bit of a rougher road, and the Tipo Cross comes alive.
I'm not implying this is an off-roader, but obstacles which you would normally tackle very gently, the Tipo Cross is, get it, without breaking its passengers' backs. Similarly with the steering, on a smooth road the Tipo runs in the general direction you point it, and on a bumpy road it goes where you want it. Quite a surprise.
But let's assume you just like the way the Tipo Cross looks and you're going to stay on tarmac. These fatter tires will protect the rims from curbs, and the backup camera and parking sensors make maneuvering easy. However, you have to pay attention to whether the sensors are on or off, because once turned off, they will remain off even after you restart the car. You have to explicitly turn them back on again. I found out the hard way a few years ago when I was reviewing the Alfa Romeo Giulia that cost FCA a new bumper. Around the city, the stop and start system works better than it used to in the early days. I recall some Fiats, the stop and start system was so slow, I could press the clutch, put the car in gear, release the clutch, and the engine hasn't come on yet. Here the system works quick, although sometimes the engine will vibrate a bit. It's a problem in some 3-cylinder engines, not all of them, but this one is one of the some.
Driver aids, like the blind spot monitoring or collision warning systems, are not as overzealous as they were in the Fiat 500e, but still a bit too sensitive for my liking, even in the most liberal setting. The adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist are okay, but they are not as good as those in the former PSA cars.
And one more thing that annoys me in former FCA cars, because former PSA cars still have different switchgear, it's the left stalk. It's too loose on its horizontal axis and too stiff on the vertical axis. So instead of indicating, I keep flashing lights at people, and one of these days I'm going to get my butt kicked.
Price of the Fiat Tipo started €19,000 for the hatchback and €20,500 for the estate. The Tipo Cross starts at €21,000. This test car with options costs around €25,000.
When I used to do a radio tech show back in the day, there was this annoying trend to call just about everything a startup. And it's the same nowadays with crossovers. Fiat has a crossover, and it's called the 500X. It also has the Panda Cross. Is the Tipo a crossover? No, it's more like the Skoda Rough Road package. Slightly better ground clearance and a plastic panel protecting the engine. It looks good, and it does better on rough roads than the ordinary hatch, but I wouldn't call it the missing link. And how do you like the Fiat Tipo Cross? Let me know in the comment section below.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.